And we are joined live on set by Senator Jon Tester. Thanks so much for taking time this morning.
It is great to be here on this chilly Tuesday morning.
And as I understand it, you drove up from the farm. So
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Had all sorts of variance in temperature, from 10 below to 30 below to Chinook in here. It's almost, well, it's 2 above, I think, when we got here.
Wow.
So
you get to see and feel it all, huh?
Yeah, exactly. It's Montana,
right.
and it's February.
Well, thank you so much for, again, taking time this morning. We want to talk to you about several big issues affecting us here in Great Falls and Montana. The first one being President Trump's emergency declaration that he put out on Friday. Now, that aims to fund the border wall, but that comes with an impact here in Montana, especially Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Yeah, it could. Depends where they take the money from. They're going to take it from military construction, but which projects? And we have some very important projects out here at the base and up on the hill that the Military Construction Fund funds, and depending where those monies come from, it could have a negative impact. So we've got to figure that out. I can tell you that the bill that we passed last week included not only funding for a wall, but also funding for manpower and also funding for technology, which most experts will say that's what we need. And even more importantly than that, it included funding for the ports, which is critically important, and it's where the vast majority of the drugs are coming through. Anybody in law enforcement will tell you that. We have a drug crisis in this country. So there was extra dollars put into the ports for both manpower and for technology, and I think it was a good bill. And so I don't agree with the president declaring an emergency and taking money from military construction money for a couple of reasons. First of all, very little of last fiscal year money has been spent yet on the border wall money that we've given him, and then also this was a good chunk of money. $1.37 billion is a lot of money.
Right. And what are some of the projects that potentially could be affected at the base? I know we're looking at a helicopter hangar, obviously the missile silo project. Are those things that potentially could be in jeopardy due to this?
Absolutely, and those hangars are critically important to get upgraded to the 21st century so we can get our airmen out to the missile silos quicker. The work that's being done at the silos themselves is also very, very important. These silos have been in the ground now since 1960. They were President Kennedy's ace in the hole. They need updating, and they have been updated over the years, but this update is critical. So if we're going to make sure that our country is defended with the ICBMs, the intercontinental ballistic missiles that we have, these upgrades are critically important.
All right, and just following up on those projects, including especially the missiles, what do you hear from Malmstrom Air Force Base officials? I know that has been a project years in the making, and for it to be threatened. It
is, and look, they get on these military construction lists. It takes years to get to the funding line, and so these have been on the construction list for years, and finally we've got to a point where we're going to start moving some dirt and building some of these facilities here in Montana, and I don't know where, like I say, I don't know where the dollars are coming from yet, but it potentially could have some pretty negative impacts on Montana. We're going to fight to make sure that doesn't happen, but nonetheless, $5.7 billion or $8 billion now is a lot of money, and there will be projects impacted around the country, and we want to make sure that Montana is not, because the security that this base provides, the deterrent that this base provides, is critically important in a worldwide in the world we live.
All right, and moving on now to another big issue here in Montana, but also around the country, the missing murdered Indigenous people crisis. We understand Ashley Loring Heavy Runner has become the face of this crisis, and I'm sure you're well aware of her case by now, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of other victims that fall in this category. For example, Henny Scott was found dead west of Lame Deer December 28th, Brittany Madplume most recently January 12th in Browning.
Yeah, well, the incidences are happening far, far too common, and we need to find out what's happening, whether it's an issue with the FBI, with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, whether it's an issue with local law enforcement, whether it's an issue with tribal councils, with the families not knowing where to report. I have requested a government accountability study on this to find out if we can really pinpoint if there's 1 or 2 or 3 things that we can fix. But this is unacceptable, and we need to get to the bottom of it sooner rather than later. There are too many families that are being destroyed, and too many people's lives who have been turned upside down because of this, and it's happening with far, far, far too much regularity.
Okay.
And what is the status of that government study?
Well, we've got to get it passed through. We also have a recommendation into them to take it up, the Government Accountability Office, and then we have a bill too. So we're hitting it from two different ways. I think this is a big enough issue where they should take it up without an act of Congress. But if they don't, we can push them with an act of Congress.
And why do you feel it's become such an issue? I mean, it's like every other law enforcement. We were just talking about this on a news aspect. You know, we get press releases, we get information, but for some reason, when things happen on the reservation, it ghosts. Nobody knows about it.
Well, there's law enforcement there's a lot of different law enforcement that play on Indian country because of the trust responsibilities. The federal government has a role. The local tribal councils have a role. Of course, the BIA has a role. And so making sure that those folks work together, making sure that people who end up with a child or a loved one that's missing know where to go, when to report it, and making sure that there isn't any problems there is also critically important. So I don't think this is going to be easy to solve, but I don't think it's going to be that tough either. I mean, it's just a matter of getting people to talk and getting together and having folks work together in the area of law enforcement, number one, and number two, making sure the families know where to go and so they report it in a timely manner.
Right. And kind of switching gears to agriculture now, you know, a big one for farmers and ranchers all across the state is going to be the electronic logging device, which, you know, to kind of break that down, this is something that, or this bill, I should say, will prohibit the Department of Transportation for being able to enforce that logging device used for logging of trucks and whatnot. So kind of explain like just how crucial that is to Montana agriculture.
Yeah, well, it sets aside livestock haulers until the 1st of October, so they don't have to deal with the electronic logging device. Some people say you can't do that, this is a safety issue. The problem, it's also a practicality issue. If truckers have to stop after a certain number of hours on the road and unload their livestock, you're not going to get them loaded very easily. You better have an army of people there to put them back on the truck. So it's a real problem. And you can't leave them on the truck or they'll die. So you have to do that, unload them halfway down to the site where you're going to dump them off. So what we've done is we've carved them out and said, hey, till the 1st of October, you don't have to worry about it. In the meantime, we'll work with the Department of Transportation and we'll work with Congress to try to get a permanent solution for the folks who haul calves and hogs and everything else considered livestock. Right.
And that was actually my follow-up question is just, you know, what are the plans kind of moving forward? This is just obviously kind of pushing things back, temporary delay, but you are kind of in the progress of trying to get a permanent solution in place as well.
This gives them some certainty, albeit just to the 1st of October. In the meantime, over the next 6 months, we're going to work to try to get a permanent solution to make sure that our roads stay safe, but also making sure that these folks can still haul livestock in Montana. More people than cattle can make sure they get them to the marketplace.
It's a crucial thing in the ag industry, that's for sure. Very cool. Again, thank you so much, Senator Tester, for coming in today and hopefully answering a few of your questions out there as well.